Connecticut and Massachusetts, Z&M Homes buys houses. Sell your property to the local guys.
Needs repairs, updates, maybe foreclosure or inherited? No problem. We gotcha. Google or add us on Facebook at ZANDMHomes.com.
It's Baxie's musical podcast.
From time to time, I'll occasionally hear someone complain that nobody is making good music these days. And if they are, it's nearly impossible to find it. That statement, of course, is total crap. Finding new music has always required a little bit of effort, maybe a little bit of guidance too, and a whole lot of open-mindedness. Give me those three things, and you're going to find plenty of new music being made right now by a bunch of very talented, young, up-and-coming artists. Ironically, people tend to shy away from the things that they don't know about, as if listening to an unfamiliar song is somehow unhealthy and dangerous. The truth is that a song only remains unfamiliar until the moment you've heard it. The other true statement is that every song from every artist that you care about has at one point or another been an up-and-coming artist. And in those moments when you finally discover something new and it connects itself to you, well, that's part of the joy of listening to music in the first place. But it requires an open mind and a willing set of ears. Because when I tell you that there is some incredible music being released right now, taking my word for it alone shouldn't be the thing that convinces you. You need to experience that music on your own. Which brings me to today's episode. My guest today is Jess Kallen. Jess Kallen is a wildly talented indie folk artist that has just released their first album this week. The name of that album is Exotherm, and it's amazing. The title track and the new single, Ink, are any indication of what's to come in the rest of this album. You will no longer be asking me, hey, how come no one's putting out any good music anymore? They are. And today, we're going to start with the amazing Jess Kallen on Baxie's musical podcast.
How are you, Michael?
Very good. So good to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, thanks for asking me on.
Oh my
How
gosh.
excited.
Well, I was given the choice of a couple people to talk to, and Sarah sent me a couple of artists, and the first one I heard Ink, and I'm going, okay, that's the one I want to talk to first. You know,
Oh, amazing.
whenever I talk to like a new up and coming artist, I mean, you don't always know what to expect, but I listened to like 15 seconds of that track. I'm going, all right, well, I've fallen in love with all of it, and I've even surprised myself by how much I've fallen in love with not just that song, but really all of them. What a great way to come out swinging for you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Wow, that means so much to hear. I'm so glad the music, is already resonating with you. That's great.
Well, and it is, and I'm not the youngest guy in the world, but I mean, I know a great song when I hear it, and when I heard that one, I'm like, well, I'm anxious to hear what the rest of it sounds like, and everything I've heard, I've just been you're really very, very impressed and amazed by.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow, so exciting.
So I was reading up on your history a little bit, and what I learned is that you've been playing guitar from the age of like 5 or 6, which is pretty young to be learning any instrument. But 5 or 6, and I believe your dad was a guitar player. What kind of music did you grow up with?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I heard my dad kind of casually strumming his guitar around the house. And he is like a big heavy metal kind of a like San Francisco metalhead. Like just kind of picture that person in your head, and that's my dad. So I grew up around like that kind of like heavy music, which seems kind of funny because when you hear the music that I tend to make, it's not really like,
Well, every kid has to rebel, Jess.
that's like the only way I can justify it, I guess. I'm like, well, I guess I was just like, I want to be like my dad, but I want to be like different. I got to be like subversive in some way, right? So
Yeah.
instead of making like heavy, angry music, I'm gonna make like some contemplative kind of thoughtful, like folk influence, like whatever. I don't know.
There aren't really enough heavy metal singer-songwriter indie folk artists out there.
That's true. Yeah, maybe the next record we can really, yeah, hone in on that. Yeah, so I grew up around a lot of that, but I mean, my parents played all sorts of just kind of music around the house. I mean, I remember my sibling and I really like, I don't know, acting out all the songs of like Sergeant Pepper's, like there's such a funny, like, I don't know, like creating our own narrative to that. And then as far, I think maybe some of like the first early like folk music that I heard was the soundtrack to My Brother, Where Art Thou? Which like seems kind of like a random first pull, but I feel like those songs really stuck in my head as like interesting and like great storytelling. Of course, like Simon and
Of
Garfunkel. A
course.
lot of They Might Be Giants was like in the car a lot. A lot of Green Day. Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty eclectic. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff we were listening to. Yeah.
I mean, that's good though. I think every kid should be exposed to a broad range of music. I mean, I expose my kids to that kind of thing, and I think ultimately that kind of helps them build their own of tastes and desires with musically. I think it's a great way to do things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm lucky that the music was never even like as soon as I, yeah, was 5 or 6 and expressed an interest in making the noise myself, my parents, took it seriously. They were,
Yeah.
they didn't put it off for a second, clearly. And so I just, yeah,
What
picked it up quick.
what I think was really really interesting is to find out that song while you've been playing guitar for most of your life now, but songwriting is actually fairly new territory for you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. It is interesting too that it never, yeah, it did come later on. I went to school actually for guitar, like for guitar performance. So that was kind of always like, and it's my first love, right? I just kind of sunk into it, and that's still probably one of my like deepest, most favorite things to do. So it wasn't until school when I just took a songwriting class that I realized I really liked kind of crafting songs as well. And it made sense. I was definitely like a English and like humanities kid in high school. I would spend hours just tweaking word choice in my papers. So it kind of like it felt right to kind of be that person who was doing the same thing but with songs now. And so yeah, it wasn't really until college when I started realizing like, yeah, this is something that I also like to do, that I like to craft a song from the bottom up and uh also play the guitar parts. I mean, look, but that's where it usually starts for me. But yeah, that's kind of where it started in school.
I've had the chance to talk to quite a lot of songwriters over the last couple of years, and and particularly about the craft of coming up with new songs. And everybody's process is a little bit different. I mean, some try to write something every single day. Other people, wait for the songs to find them. Where in that spectrum do you fall in songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really gosh, it really depends. I really admire people who are consistent, prolific writers, and sometimes I kind of fall into like a season of my life where like I'm doing that, where I'm writing every day, or at least editing something every day. But more often than not, it feels like a little like drop of magic. I'm like sitting with a guitar and then like something, I just play something and then things kind of appear, right?
Right.
So it's usually a little more spontaneous, at least the like start of it. And then finishing a song, I don't know how to explain the mental process other than maybe it's just like kind of manic, honestly. like like I'll just kind of obsess over finishing the song until like I reach a good stopping point. And that doesn't mean like I'll edit it, kind of down the line. I fully believe in like finishing a song and then leaving it for a few months and then coming back and like
Right.
making edits on it. But I do become very like hyper fixated on like whatever song I'm working on until it's like I can't really think about much else for those couple days.
I've actually heard that a lot. Even for
Yeah.
people that you expect where it should come easy, they wind up punishing themselves over that process. Like I have to finish this, or I have to remember this, or I have to put it someplace. And there's a kind of mental organization that's required of the craft, and it's like a blessing or a curse for some people.
Yeah, I feel that. It's yeah, some days it feels more like the curse, right? When you're like, I just want to like get my groceries or whatever, but I like can't stop like thinking about tinkering with this song a little bit more. But no, most days it feels really like, I don't know, it feels really cathartic and special to sink into that feeling, to sink into the song and yeah, just come out the other side like you're popping your head out of the water and taking a deep breath like, wow. Okay. Woo!
You had a couple songs on Bandcamp that have been there for quite a while, just a small handful, and
Yeah.
some of them go back to like 2018. As far as
Mhm.
the songs on this album Exotherm, how far back did those songs go? Do they come from as far back as 2018?
Great question. Yeah, there are a couple songs that I think are that old. There's one of them I think that's out right now is called The Knife, and
Mm,
that one's a little bit probably maybe the oldest song on the record, probably from around that time, 2018. And then I would say the majority of the stuff on the record is from like those early days of the pandemic, kind of like 2020,
right.
stuck at home. There's no other gigs happening, so I guess I'm gonna finish a bunch of songs, right? So that's what kind of feels, I don't know, part of the record now feels like so foreign because I'm like, gosh, who was the person who wrote this? And I was like, oh yeah, it was a person who was like held captive in their house, like we all were, like we were all just stuck. And so it feels like there's a lot of moments of me like kind of spotlighting my little home life at that time and
Yeah.
on the record, which makes sense because I mean, we were all home all day for like a year. So
I kind of wondered about that because for a lot of people when they write songs, especially like a new album is about to come out, they're super connected to those songs, but then all of a sudden they start writing new songs before the album comes out and like now I'm not so sure about those old songs I've been pouring my heart into. Do you feel that same kind of situation?
oh my God, of course. It's really like stereotypical and like it's like, oh, I don't even recognize that person. These songs aren't even me anymore. Like it feels very stereotypical, but I'm certainly like I've never really been in a record cycle for my own music before, so I'm definitely learning like, okay, I think like this kind of dissociative like feeling is has to be kind of part of it just because of the pace of getting such a massive project like this done. So yeah, I'm learning like, okay, I think it can be also helpful a little bit to be a little bit like dissociated from it, a little
Right.
removed, be like, yeah, even if like I don't feel like the Jess that wrote those songs, like I can still be proud of that person and I can still celebrate that person even though they're like a couple years in the rear view at this point and these songs feel that way too. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm learning to instead of kind of yeah, brood over that, like, oh, these songs aren't even me anymore. I'm trying to like, you know, embrace that person who wrote them instead.
But there's also got to be a part of you that now that you're at the finish line and the album is coming out, that it must kind of feel like this enormous weight is just pouring off of you, holding on to these songs and trying to make them just perfect and just the way you want. And now that moment of release is finally here. I mean, it's got to be an enormous weight off
Yeah,
your
it
shoulders.
it really it does feel enormous. Yeah, thank you. And I really mean it when I say like anyone who finishes a record or even like an EP, like giant visual art project, like it's a miracle it gets done. Like it is there's so much going on in life. Like I'm sometimes shocked that we got it
Yeah.
to the finish line, the team around the record and I. It really is a miracle. So like to anyone who's yeah, just sitting on their project, like just giving it all the nudges they can. Like I see you, I feel you, I'm like rooting for you. Like it took me a couple years to really finally put this one on the front burner and to kind of push it out at the very, towards the finish line. So I really feel you. It's a miracle it gets
Yeah,
done.
it's a birth, is what it is. It's really a birth. It's a miraculous crescendo of life, I guess you could say. I don't know. You know,
Totally.
I already mentioned how much I love the song Ink. I think it's just a wonderful song. But the other one that really leaped out at me is Mile 11, which I think is
Oh,
an
thank
absolutely gorgeous song. And I want to I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to throw something at you, and I'm not even sure that this is someone you know or have been influenced
Uh-huh.
by. But when I hear that song, I hear a couple of influences, and one that just really just leaped out at me
Yeah.
was the music of the late Judy Sill. I don't know if you're
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you're aware of her. Uh,
Yeah, I am a little bit. Wow, that's really high praise. Oh my
well,
goodness.
it's for people who don't know who Judy Sill was, Judy was this brilliant singer-songwriter that released only 2 albums in 71 and 73, and the first album was produced by Graham Nash from Crosby, Stills and Nash and the Hollies. And these records are kind of obscure, but it's some of the most amazingly sophisticated songwriting maybe ever. And I hear shades of that along the way. It's particularly in My 11, but also in some of the older songs like No Ordinary Love. I heard it too, and I don't know how aware you are of her music or how much time you've spent absorbing it, but there really are some parallels in the way these songs are constructed.
Thank you. Yeah, that's again really high praise, and I definitely, yeah, I think there it was some absorption for sure of that like kind of 70s folk influenced kind of songwriting. I mean, I think even I don't know that this will ring a bell maybe for you. I imagine it might. This band called the Roaches, that's like 3 sisters from the 70s.
Hmm.
They write really like kind of almost like comedic, but like beautiful, strange folk influence like type of music. And I love songs that kind of, I don't know. There's something about this record that I'm thinking of in particular by the Roaches. I think it's a self-titled
Hmm.
album that is like it's equal parts just like silliness and joy. And it doesn't, the music, it has like this very visceral beauty to it, but it's also very silly. There's some really like just straight up like I think like you could even call them like comedy songs on them. They're like very silly. But there's one track in particular called the Hammond song. I think that's really, there's like nothing like it. I've never heard anything like this song
Yeah.
really. But yeah, I love that kind of 70s storytelling kind of sound. I think it is something that I've absorbed. And yeah, Judy still definitely, yeah, fits in that kind of like
Yeah.
bubble in my head, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
One of the things that I really have appreciated with a lot of the songs is what you're doing lyrically and how you've crafted them. On
Hmm.
one hand, kind of like what you're saying with the Roaches, this whimsical, childlike way you start a lot of these songs,
Hmm.
like Exotherm, for example. I mean, you start singing about a
Yeah.
pet turtle behind a flower pot, and then all in the next breath,
Yeah.
you become very self-reflective.
Yeah.
And and I'm not saying there's a formula, there per se, but I really like the way you twist things and take turns in different directions that I don't think a lot of people might expect you to be taking them. And I think that's just a really cool approach to lyrics.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is definitely something I spend a lot of time thinking about is like, how do I make each line and lyric really impactful and surprising? And but of course, just always like truthful, just always, rooted in truth. And I think that's hopefully why like that a silly lyric about my pet turtle, which is very like, it's a pretty weird thing to be writing a song about, like I'll admit it. Like but hopefully it kind of resonates with something truthful inside everybody about that feeling of digging holes, trying to run, like that struggle with identity and trying to figure out what it means for each of us.
Well, and
Yeah.
the video is good because I mean I'm watching it thinking she is going to find this turtle, right?
Yeah.
This turtle's not gone, is it? I don't want to get too emotionally attached to the turtle.
Oh my god! I even had my mom texted me after the video came out, and she was like, "Your grandma watched your video and was like really worried, like that your turtle was really lost. Like you should probably like reach out to her." I was like, "Oh no,
Yeah, call your
oh
grandmother, let
no,
her know.
yeah, yeah, exactly." Some like real Jewish guilt in there, like you need to call your grandma. Like,
So when you're writing lyrics, I mean, is there a certain approach that you're trying to take? I mean, do you let the lyrics kind of progress in their own, or do you know where you want to go with this narrative as you're writing them?
I feel like the songs usually reveal themselves to me. It seems pretty rare, like I know where the song is going when I sit down to start, but it usually starts with a lyric or a turn of phrase that like jumps out at me. Like that, the first line of exotherm, right? My pet turtle likes the space between the flower pot and wall,
Wall.
which is just a funny thing that she likes to just wedge herself in there. And then the rest of the song kind of, usually that's how it works. The rest of the song kind of spills out. But I do love to kind of toggle back and forth between observational, hyper specific things, and then like the big truths that we all feel. Because not everybody has a pet turtle who does that, but I think everybody can hopefully relate to some of that experience or something.
With your dad being a metalhead, does he listen to these lyrics and go, this is not my kid?
He's never really, he plays it pretty close to the chest, I'd say. Like, he doesn't reveal too much about how he feels. Sometimes he did, like, particularly say that he really liked Ink to me, and so I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That one tends to be a little bit of the, like, raucous one.
Well,
That made sense.
the way you take that song, it starts off very much like that. It's there's that whimsical childlike feel, but then all of a sudden the song really starts to come together, and it's freaking awesome the way that the whole thing works. It's an amazing song.
Thank you. Thank you. I am proud of that one. It's one of those like special little magic songs that like came out in less than an hour probably. Like the whole thing. It's really crazy when that happens. I don't know how to explain how a song just like finds its way into your body, but like that was one of those kind of magic ones where there's a little bit of editing after, but like 99% of the song was just in one sitting. And with that riff, I think the
Yeah.
riff kind of and the rhythm kind of pushed the lyrics just right out.
The riff seals the whole deal. That's for sure. That's a great one. So now that the record is out, and now you're doing interviews with complete strangers. Uh, where are you gonna take this promotionally? I mean, I assume at some point you may get on the road with this. I mean, what's the plan moving forward with this?
Yeah, I would love to take this music on the road. I've never really like done a tour of my own music. I play guitar for some other artists, and so I've been on a few tours, and like of course there's nothing like that feeling. It's an amazing experience to get to bring the songs to a new city every day. So I'd love to do that. I'm kind of looking into like the fall to kind of start planning a little tour. In the meanwhile, like I'm just in Los Angeles. I've got a little like release show on June 26th to celebrate this record that I'm excited for. It's kind of gonna just be a nice little friends and family affair.
That's great.
But as much as I can, I love just making noise with my life. So I would love to take this noise wherever it will let me.
Was also reading, and it's a good thing you're thinking about the fall, just around the time where kids need to be educated. But you also teach too, and tell me about a bit about that.
Oh man, it's another just real like blessing I feel like I get to do in my life, and with this very niche skill set that I have developed that is like strumming a bunch of strings really well. But I mostly teach, well, I do some like kind of private lessons type of thing. And those students kind of can range from like really, really young ukulele students to like, the middle-aged, like intermediate guitar player that like, just wants to like keep up their skills. And then I also do a lot of teaching through nonprofit here in LA called Young Musicians Foundation. And as far as like big music nonprofits go, I really believe that this one really gets it right. As a teaching artist there, I help kind of bridge the gap for students who have just no arts in their schools at all. There's a lot of schools here in LA that just have no funding for the arts. And so I get to come into the classrooms and bring music there. And so we'll learn everything from like music fundamentals to learning like a really specific silly song for them to sing and dance to kind of punctuate their week. And it's really special stuff. Like the kids are so eager and hungry for it, especially because there's just not much else that they get during their weeks. And I feel really lucky. Like my mom is an educator, so I think it's kind of like a a family thing that was passed down too, that I really enjoy. I
Yeah.
love, getting to build these relationships and communities with
What are,
young
what are
people.
the ages you're working with?
It ranges pretty greatly, but this past year is with like elementary school. So as young as like 5, 6, and
Yep.
as old as like that 5th grade, kind of like 10-year-old range. So just like oh my God, there's such a huge difference even between like kindergarten and 1st grade, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
just it just like truly stretches every like teaching muscle
Well, I mean,
I've ever had.
they're much more receptive to that than say by the time they get to middle school when they're 13, 14 years old and they don't care what you're trying to teach them. It's never going to connect
It's
to them whatsoever.
true.
But
Oh
it
my
is true.
God.
It is true. Well,
Yeah, I definitely have even like 4th graders who are like a little too cool for me. They're like, you don't know who this is. Like if they have an artist that I've never heard of, or they can sometimes be, just so cutting and like it's amazing. It's on I really admire the directness, honestly. I wish, I think we could all benefit from bringing that more into our day to day.
well, if a 5 or 6-year-old comes up to you and say, "Hey, your music reminds me of the music of the late Judy Sill," I want you to call me back and let me know.
Yeah, okay, will do.
Like I said, I'm so pleased that you could join me today. The album is great for the parts that I've heard. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. Ink is such an amazing song, and I wish you all the best with this record. You should be very, very proud of it.
Thanks so much, Michael. It's just a treat to talk to you today. And I'm so glad the music is almost here. And keep listening. I'm so glad.
Thanks for joining me, Jess. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
You too. The name of Jess Kallen's new record is Exotherm. It's now available everywhere. It is awesome. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give the record a listen, and feel free to subscribe, like, share, and talk things up amongst your friends. You can email me at baxarock102.com. I'd love to know what you think. Thanks again to Z&M Home Buyers at znmhomes.com, and thanks again for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.